Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome council, staff, and residents to the special council meeting for Thursday, February 26, 2026. And we are being streamed live. So I will call the meeting to order with the land acknowledgement. We are meeting today on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Huron-Wendat, Anishinaabe, and the Haudenosaunee peoples. We acknowledge our shared obligation to respect, honor, and sustain these lands and the natural resources contained within. We honor their cultures and celebrate their commitment to this land. We would also like to acknowledge the Mohawk and Algonquin nations whose traditional and unceded territory we are gathered upon today. Hastings County is situated on treaty land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history and home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. Next is on the agenda is approval of the agenda, and the recommendation is that the agenda for the special regular meeting of the Council of the Municipality of Marmorant Lake for Thursday, February 26, 2026 be approved as presented. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Ron, second. Eric, any questions or discussion on the agenda? Being none, all in favor? That's carried. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest? Being none, we'll move on to staff reports, which is our treasurer, Nancy. I'll ask Nancy to move over to the table, but in the meantime, I want to read something that I've been traditionally reading for the last 2 or 3 years, just to put our efforts to budgeting in context. So over the last decade or so, one political fad has done lasting damage to many municipal governments in Canada. The fad is the foolish commitments to keep tax increases at or below the rate of inflation, usually as set in the Consumer Price Index, or CPI. This meant that many municipalities capped tax increases at 2 to 3% and often less, in some cases for decades. Of course, the cost of running a municipality has nothing to do with the basket of household goods that forms the CPI. Municipalities purchase things that have very different inflationary pressures, such as concrete, road salt, fire trucks, construction materials, specialized software, buses, asphalt, and dozens of other commodities. Moreover, the biggest cost for municipalities is wages and benefits, many for unionized staff with costs set through collective bargaining, or in the case of the emergency services, often by arbitration. One Canadian city, which I won't name, had a major taxpayer go under about 12 years ago. The mayor had campaigned on keeping the tax rate increases at or below the rate of inflation. Council raided the reserves to keep taxes down and then just slowly starved the city. After a decade of 1 to 2% tax increases, the total spending power of the city had shrunk by roughly 21%, and the discretionary reserves were largely depleted. Over the same period, the city grew by 15%. That is municipal governance at its most irresponsible. While the attraction of the CPI fad is obvious, let's be blunt. It may be great politics, but it's dreadful governance. It means pushing big tax increases to the next generation of property owners and future councils, especially if it results in underfunding infrastructure maintenance. If council is also raiding reserves to keep tax increases down, they are guilty of the added sin of using public money for patently political purposes. The CPI fad has also kept the conversation on tax rates unhelpfully focused on percentages and not dollar amounts. That can certainly be a burden for some. The tax increases can certainly be a burden for some, but letting key infrastructure rot and fail, or underfunding the operating budget to avoid something like a $90 a year tax increase is the height of bad governance. Also remember that the average Canadian household spends $2,500 a year on internet, TV and phones, and similar amount dining out. Municipalities need to talk about MPI, the Municipal Price Index, not CPI. MPI is almost always greater than CPI. And using discretionary reserves to reduce tax increases, especially reserves intended for future public amenities, is simply stealing from future generations to help council get reelected. Even if it's not illegal, it's unethical and dreadful governance. The past two budgets we've done here in Marmora were difficult and tax increases were significant. However, we are in a better financial position as a result, but still the second lowest tax base in Hastings County. Just before Nancy does her presentation, I'd like to thank staff, that is all departments, for what I consider a very reasonable and responsible budget. So thank you. Thank you to the taxpayers, residents, for your input. There are 3 letters in the agenda and they can be accessed online. Also, I just like, as a reminder, well, first of all, I'll do the public input thing. This portion of the meeting is set aside for the public to comment on the 2026 draft budget for council's consideration. Comments will be received by council only. Comments or clarification by the public or councilors are permitted. Speakers may not speak disrespectfully of any council member or staff member or any other person and must not use offensive words or gestures. So I just as a reminder like to say that this is a special meeting strictly for public input into the 2026 budget. For council's consideration, there'll be no debate or discussion made and no decisions made today. So if you plan to speak before we start the speakers, I'd like to ask you to come to the page, registration page there, and I think we'll take 5 minutes. And anybody that plans to speak, could you just go and sign in and give your contact information? And we have one registered speaker, Mr. Mole. So when Nancy has finished her presentation, or do you want, maybe we can do the sign-ins before Nancy does her presentations? Okay, thank you. So this is the portion, the public input portion of the meeting. This portion of the meeting is set aside for the public to comment on the 2026 draft budget for council's consideration. Comments will be received by council only. Comments or clarification by the public or councilors are permitted. Speakers may not speak disrespectfully of any council member or staff member or any other person, and must not use offensive words or gestures. So just a reminder. So Mr. Mole is our registered speaker. So Mr. Mole, oh, sorry. Go ahead, Nancy. We'll have Mr. Mole come after Nancy's presentation.
Good evening, Mayor O'Neill, council, and members of the public. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Nancy Sinclair, the municipal treasurer for the municipality of Marmora Lake. I am presenting the 2026 draft budget report, which references the highlights in the 2026 draft budget and explains the challenges the municipality faces when completing the budget process. This 2026 draft budget is intended to maintain reliable delivery of core municipal services, protect public safety and regulatory compliance, and address infrastructure needs in line with our asset management priorities, and to do so in a way that is financially sustainable, including appropriate use of reserves. It is important to remember that this is a draft. Council may amend items as deliberations proceed on March 12th. The 2026 draft budget proposes a 4.84% increase. Council approval typically covers tax-supported operating, which is the day-to-day municipal services funded by property taxes and other revenues, tax-supported capital, infrastructure projects funded through a mix of levy reserves, grants, and possibly debt. Currently, there is no proposed debt in this draft budget. Reserve fund transfers that support both operating stability and long-term capital needs. Some costs are outside of the direct municipal control because they are external or shared service costs. For example, policing, county requisitions, and other partner service board costs, like conservation authorities. These must still be planned for in the overall budget. The 2026 draft reflects pressures that many Ontario municipalities are facing. Continued cost increase in materials, fuel, utilities, and contracted services, insurance and risk management costs. Luckily, in 2025, the municipality was able to secure a lower rate for insurance, but these costs will increase over time. Wage and labor market pressures, including recruitment and retention challenges. Aging infrastructure requiring more life cycle maintenance and replacement. Increased frequency and severity of weather-related events that can affect roads, drainage, and operations. In the past years, we've had to deal with flooding, a derecho, a tornado, and most recently, an ice storm. Our objective is to maintain these pressures while avoiding deferrals that create higher costs or risks later. There are two major components in the draft budget. There's operating and capital. Firstly, the operating budget funds the ongoing delivery of municipal services, typically including roads operations and maintenance, including winter control, parks facilities and municipal buildings, fire and emergency management functions, bylaw, animal control, administration, finance, and council. Required programs such as health and safety training and regulatory compliance. As treasurer, I want to emphasize operating costs are not just expenses. They are what allows the municipality to provide predictable service levels and meet legal and safety mandates. Secondly, the capital budget, which addresses our long-term infrastructure, roads, bridges, culverts, facilities, fleet, and equipment. The capital planning is guided by asset condition and remaining useful life, with guidance from our AMP, our asset management plan, roads need studies, and other engineer reports. Risk and service impact, for example, road safety and liability exposure, regulatory requirements, and timing opportunities for grants coordinated with capital projects. Deferring capital can increase future costs and can increase operational risk, especially for roads, drainage, and critical facilities. Reserve and reserve funds are essential to financial sustainability. They help us reduce reliance on debt, respond to emergencies and unexpected events, and stabilize the tax levy over time. The 2026 draft budget includes recommended reserve transfers to ensure we are matching long-term infrastructure obligations with an appropriate funding plan. The goal is to use reserves as they are intended for planned life cycle replacement, risk management, and strategic priorities, not as a substitute for sustainable operational funding. This presentation is part of the municipality's budget process. The next step will continue on March 12th, where council will review and deliberate. There will be considerations and amendments, confirmation of reserve transfers and capital projects, and the final adoption by council resolution and bylaw in accordance with municipal procedures. In closing, the 2026 draft budget aims to balance affordability with real costs of maintaining infrastructure and delivering reliable local services. Okay. So we are going to go through the draft budget report. So this first page explains the beginning process of the budget. So on an annual basis, the municipality prepares a budget for council to authorize the expenditures for the upcoming year. The 2026 draft budget is a service-based budget with important capital projects to maintain municipal infrastructure. The 2026 draft budget process required each department manager to complete a proposed budget outlining the goals and services to be provided. The managers also include capital projects to keep them aligned with the asset management plan implemented in 2022 and updated in 2025. The operating budget typically represents what is required to run the day-to-day functions of the department. Examples include heat, fuel, utilities, materials, supplies, and staffing. The capital budget consists of major projects or the replacement of infrastructure within the municipality. Examples include resurfacing a road, purchasing equipment, or performing a major repair to a facility. Through meetings with department managers and the CAO, priorities and necessities for the outcoming year were determined. The treasurer then compiled all department budgets to create a draft budget. The result is a document that council will use to determine the needs of the municipality and seek public input. Once council has deliberated and made decisions based on staff priorities and public feedback, the final budget will be passed by council. Operating and capital expenditures are funded by revenue received from user fees, service charges, grants, reserves, financing, and property taxation. Like most municipalities, property taxation is Marmarin Lake's primary revenue source. The capital budget outlines municipalities' capital expenditure plan and related funding for projects that will provide or support services to residents over many years. Any capital projects not completed in 2025 have been carried over into the 2026 draft budget. Funding from these projects will come from reserves, as the funds have already been raised in taxation in the approved 2025 budget. The 2026 draft budget proposes an increase of the operational budget of $36,679 and an increase of $450,810 from the capital budget, all to be funded by tax revenue. Under the current draft budget, the proposed increase experienced by a property owner would be 4.84%. The proposed municipal tax levy increase would be 7.05%. The county rate was passed actually earlier today. It's official and has been added into the 2026 draft budget. There is no change to the education rate this year. And to illustrate how it would affect taxpayers is a property owner with an assessment of $168,000 would have an increase of $125.78 for the year, or $10.49 per month. A property owner with an assessment of $200,000 would have an increase of $149.74 for the year, or $12.48 per month. So this is the highlights of the operating budget. So we received increase in the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund, also known as the OMPF funding. We had cost savings from our municipal insurance policy. There was an increase of 11% in the OPP requisition. We had a decrease in the Quinte Waste Solution contract. Animal control still remains a user-pay department funded completely by residents who own dogs, which means there's no tax implication. Increased budget for sand and salt and equipment repairs to the Transportation Service Department. Mobile hazardous waste event, a contribution to the new Belleville Depot, and continued pickup of recycling products for ineligible producers for the entire year. In 2025, it was only for part of the year from August to December. Contribution to the physician recruitment program is still happening. increase to administration revenue, decrease in legal fees for transportation and planning, increase to an arena revenue due to the reopening of the facility, and increase in heat, hydro, and utility costs. This page highlights the capital budget. So there's increased resurfacing. Proposed projects include Delora Road and Centerline Road. Contribution to the bridge reserves. There's 34 bridges in Marmarin Lake. Reserves for the tennis court resurfacing and the Memorial Park playground. There is plans to do Booster Park and Meg's Landing boat launch repairs. There is plans for a new lawnmower for Parks and Recreation. Reserves for the Zamboni replacement. Replacing the floor throughout the arena and various upgrades to the Dr. Hamilton Crawford Memorial Arena. Some repairs to the Medical Center, Memorial Building, curling rink and Deloro Hall. Some renovations and repairs to Town Hall. There's plans for a strategic plan and upgrades to the water and sewer infrastructure. The 2026 draft budget is funded as follows. The total proposed capital budget is $2,506,400 funded as follows. There's no new proposed long-term debt in the 2026 draft budget. There's $254,489 from the government OCIF funding, which is the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund. $250,000 from the government CCBF fund, known as the Canadian Community Building Fund. $260,500 from reserves. $200,000 from the Ontario Trillium Grant application. $25,000 in parkland fees. $20,800 for trade-in equipment revenue. $147,400 from water and sewer rates. $1,348,211 from taxation revenue. The total proposed operating budget is $10,996,973, and it's funded as follows. $1,988,300 from the government, which is the OMPF funding. $215,621 from provincial federal funding, which includes the transit and the library grant. $2,702,851 from the other revenue, which is rates, fees, investment rent revenue, and penalty and interest. $40,000 from transfer from reserves, and $6,050,201 from taxation. So I know everyone keeps having questions and wondering what's happening with the assessments. And still, they are frozen at the 2016 values. They have been since 2020, and there has been no update or announcements made that it's going to happen anytime soon. The median impact for assessment in Marmora Lake still remains at $168,000 for 2026. The median sale price for real estate market value in Marmora as of 2025 was $442,000. It is important to note that the impact assessment is not the same as your market value assessment or what you could potentially sell your home or property for. Market values tend to be 2 to 3 times your impact assessment. So I'm still not able to update some of the analyticals because MPAC has been doing a big update in there, and since December 22nd, we've been locked out of it. They hope in the next couple of weeks that we'll be able to get back in there, but as of yet, this is the data I had in 2025. I don't imagine it will change a whole lot because the assessments are frozen, so it would be fairly similar. So as of 2025, 60.25 of assessments in Marmora Lake fall in the range of $168,000 or less. This means that over half of the tax dollars being collected are raised by this low assessment. 7.37% of assessments fall in the $168 and $1 to the $200,000 range, and 32.37% of assessments fall in the $200,000 and $1 and up range. So this is just a graph that shows the statistics that I just said. So you can see that the main assessments fall in the 168 range. Now, this information I am able to obtain, and this is our 2026 roll return that we collect taxes on. So this is accurate, and you can see that still, and is 91.67% of our taxes is residential. So approximately 95.45% of all assessments in Marmor Lake are residential, managed forest, or farm. This means that only 4.55% of assessments in Marmor and Lake are from commercial or industrial. So what does this mean? It means the burden of tax increases falls on residential assessments, which have the lower tax rate, to generate revenue to support the costs of running a municipality. More commercial and industrial assessments are needed to relieve the increase on residential homeowners. Marmor and Lake needs growth. The more properties there are to generate tax revenue, the better. This is why bigger cities may have a lower tax rate. They have more properties from which to collect taxes, and they also have more commercial and industrial properties that generate more tax revenue than residential properties. Even with the proposed tax increase, Marmor and Lake will still have one of the lowest tax rates in Hastings County. A lot of our budget process is now guided by the asset management plans that we are legislated to put in place. So in December of 2017, the asset management planning for municipal infrastructure was passed under the Infrastructure for Jobs and Prosperity Act. This regulation requires municipalities to develop a strategic asset management policy, which will help municipalities document the relationship between their asset management plan and existing policies and practices, as well as provide guidance for future capital investment decisions. The Marmor and Lake Council approved the strategic asset management plan policy in 2019. OREG 588-17 also contains more specific requirements on the type of analysis municipal asset management plans should include. The aim is to guide municipalities so the asset management plans are more consistent across the province. Furthermore, in March of 2021, the province amended the regulation to extend the regulatory timelines by 1 year. Municipalities had to have an asset management plan in place by July of 2022. So the next slide here is the different options that council could choose from. And so the council received and approves the asset management plan as presented. A motion was made. And further, that council direct municipal staff to consider increasing annual capital contributions consistent of strategies 2 and 3 during the 2023 budget process and beyond, and that council direct staff to continue to utilize the asset management plan to identify high priority capital projects required to be undertaken, which could require funding assistance from other levels to complete. So the next slide shows that there was some decreases in our capital. So anywhere there was red, instead of increasing capital, it went down, which causes a spike in your tax increase because we had to increase our capital, not decrease it. So council passed a resolution to adopt strategies 2 or 3 from the 2022 asset management plan and increase capital funding, which was on the previous slide. In 2022 and 2023, capital work decreased, creating a greater gap in meeting the municipal asset management obligations. The 2020 2024 and 2025 budget process increases the proposed 2026 budget increase are aimed at closing this gap. Unfortunately, the infrastructure at Marmor Lake has reached an age where it's becoming a liability. Soon bridges, some buildings, and roadways will be unsafe to use if steps are not taken to repair and replace where it's needed. This slide has to deal with, we had to update our 2025 asset management plan, which is a continuation of the asset management plan from 2022. So the Ministry of Infrastructure, through the Building Together Guide for Municipal Asset Management Plans, implemented a mandate for municipalities. Under Ontario Regulation 588-17, asset management planning for the municipalities infrastructure to provide an updated asset management plan in 2025. The 2025 asset management plan was required to include service levels and a financial plan to support the municipal infrastructure. The main purpose of the 2025 asset management plan is to advance the municipality's asset management practices by developing strategies to meet the specific needs of the community. These strategies must align with the requirements of the Ontario regulations. This plan is focused on several key objectives: ensuring long-term sustainability, lower cost of ownership, minimizing risk, enhancing service delivery, and supporting informed decision-making. And just a note that if anyone wants to see our asset management plans, they are on our municipal website located at the bottom of the homepage. This page is a motion that was made at when we were presenting it on December 16th for the 2025 asset management update. And it said that council received the asset management plan 2025 reported dated December 16th, 2025, that council approved the municipality of Marmor Lake's level of service asset management prepared in accordance with the Ontario regulation. The council received tax-supported and rate-supported financial information of the plan that identifies a funding gap over the next 10 years to meet the proposed service levels. That council directs staff to make the plan publicly available on the municipality's website. The council directs staff to submit the plan to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. And further, that council directs staff to incorporate recommendations of the asset management plan for both tax-supported and rate-supported capital levels of service, utilization of risk-based prioritization, and increase of asset condition knowledge into the future capital budget processes, including a minimum commitment to financing strategy option 2, with room for additional increases to capital expenditures through the budget process as needed and recommended by staff. This page is the options that were chose. So option 2 is the tax-funded capital versus current funding, 10-year proposed level of service. With project-specific funding, closing the gap by the end of the 10 years will require a tax levy increase of about 2.95%. This is approximately $177,000 in 2026 and every year going forward. Without project-specific grant funding, closing the gap by the end of 10 years will require a tax levy increase of 3.02% in 2026, approximately $182,000 in 2026 and onward. Establishing a dedicated infrastructure levy of 2.95% will allow the municipality to close the projected levels of service funding gap by the end of the 10 years. So that section is just for capital. The next one is rate funded. So with project-specific grant funding, closing the gap by the end of the 10-year period will require a rate increase of 14.2% in 2026. This is approximately $197,000 in 2026 and forward. With project-specific grant funding, closing the gap by the end of the 10 years would require a tax levy increase of about 15.3% in 2025. This is approximately $212,000 in 2026 and onward. A sustainable financial strategy, which includes operating, will be established through a rate study and process that's underway, and it was presented to council on February 17th. Just a note, the municipality has met the requirement of the 2025 asset management plan by increasing capital $450,810 and was able to do this with a 4.84% increase due to the cost savings in the operational budget. This page is a graph of showing you the direction that capital is going in. So you can see that we're going in the right direction. We're increasing our capital, and that is a good thing. Although capital funding projects decreased in previous years, these graphs depict an increase in financial commitment to the infrastructure of Marmarin Lake moving forward. The next page is some of the projects that were identified as high needs for our municipality. So in consultation with municipal staff and given the results of the asset management plan, the following table outlines a list of key capital projects that have been identified as high priorities and require immediate attention. This list was compiled in 2022 when Henson completed the asset management plans. These costs have not reflected any inflation since 2022. So as you can see, I have added which ones have been completed, which ones have been partially completed. So it's kind of encouraging to see that the asset management plan is working. Although not explicitly identified in the list above, the linear water, sewer, and stormwater infrastructure is in poor and very poor condition, which is associated with corresponding road work. It should be considered a high priority as undertaking the work simultaneously would create the most efficient use of our resources. This list shows an extreme financial strain capital projects placed on municipal taxes. Many councillors, mayors in Hastings County are publicly speaking out about the lack of funding for rural communities, which makes it impossible to maintain all the aging infrastructure within their municipalities. Marmarin Lake is struggling with the very same issues. Although the recent tax increases may seem high, they are necessary as buildings are deteriorating and safety is becoming an issue. And the last page in closing just gives you an idea of the size of Marmarin Lake. We have 215 kilometers of roads in the summer, but in the winter that doubles to 430 kilometers of roads that need to be maintained. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Do any members of council need clarification from Nancy on any of her presentation? Okay, thanks very much, Nancy. Good report. So we'll go now to our public input. Mr. Mole. Sorry. Sorry. We'll go now to the public input portion. Can you hear me now? Thank you. Mr. Mole, go ahead, please.
I'm surprised from the first.
You were the only registered speaker before tonight.
Oh, okay. Anyway, good evening, all. I'm in here to suggest that we should do some changing to the plowings of the roads. The roads are plowed quite nicely when they are actually plowed, which makes them safe things to be on. As of right now, the roads are not cleared at night at all. A good percentage of the snow has actually been falling at night through this entire winter. so far. Having the roads plowed in the morning between 3 and 5:30 is good, but the roads are still used at night. But they are still being used by people who work evening shifts. The morning plowing doesn't happen on a regular basis because it's not always snowing in the morning. Without plowing the roads in the evenings after there has been heavy snowfall, the people going back and forth to work are in danger because the roads are heavily crusted with snow and dangerous to drive on, which would lead to accidents or could lead to accidents and possible deaths. The evening shift includes people who work municipality like the elderly patients in Crescent Care nursing home, the afternoon shifts and the evening shift from 1 p.m. to 8 a.m. The afternoon shift leaves shortly after 10 p.m. So always in the situation where possible danger on the roads because they're not being taken care of.
Excuse me, Mr. Mole, this is for public input for budget. You can make a delegation to a future council meeting if you want to discuss this, unless there's some budget implication to what you're
Well, there
suggesting.
is budget implications in a sense, okay? The road should be plowed at night, okay? To protect the people that drive them at night, to protect the people that have to get out of their houses and go to the hospitals or whatever if they're sick, to make it so that people who, if they had an ambulance coming in because they're sick, the ambulance could get in. Right now, the way the roads are, they can't get in. Okay.
So are you going to make a recommendation of a change
Yes.
to the budget?
Well, I don't know I didn't know I was supposed to make a recommendation for a change to the budget. But basically, I'm not saying that the budget should be changed drastically. What I'm saying is there should be plowing in the morning and a large gap during the day when there's really not a lot of snow. And then people who are doing the plowing, and I know this happens in some of the other municipalities around, is the people who do the plowing are told at night to come and do the plowing at night to clear it up if there is problems with snow. Okay.
So are you implying that, suggesting that we need more staff, more like the
Well, I don't think
looking
it's
for a
per se as much more staff. I'm saying that the staff would have to be shifted so that they cover a larger area and they take breaks in between. Now, it may cost slightly higher because they're going to say, okay, well, I need some extra money because I'm not working from the way it's set up right now. They work from 3 o'clock in the morning to about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay. And nothing is done at night at all. Okay. So people's lives are at risk. Also, the fact that people, if their houses were on fire for some reason, the roads could be completely covered so that the fire trucks and everything could not get in. Okay.
So what you're really asking is for to increase the maintenance standards.
Yes. So that but what you do is you make it so that you have the morning, right? And then based on what the snow is during the day, for the most part, especially lately, it's been in the afternoon. And that's one of the ones I was talking about here. I wanted to talk about was last week on Friday, there was no snowing in the morning at all. The roads were Friday afternoon at 11 o'clock. Okay. They came and plowed the road. And then at night, for the only time in the entire time that this winter, they plowed at 8 o'clock. That made it so the people who worked at night were able to get back and forth without being under dangers of coming off the roads and hurting themselves or perhaps getting killed.
So I think we're going to have to, like I said, we're looking for suggestions or changes to the budget.
Yeah.
So I think what I'm hearing is that you would like our staff to review or consider changes to our maintenance standards.
Yes, increase the maintenance standards for the roads so that people are not in danger if they work at night. The people who work at night are people like the ones that work at the retirement home, the people that work at the say the down the road at the restaurants. They're open till 8 o'clock at night, so they won't get out till like 9:30. So they could be back in the snow.
Okay, I think we
Okay.
concluded.
People in town here at this one here, the restaurant pub, they're open till 11 o'clock.
Mr.
Okay,
Mole, I think we have to end it at that. We've got your message that you want us to review our maintenance standards, and staff are here to hear that.
Yeah.
And we thank you for your input. Does any member of council have any questions for clarification? Ron?
Yeah, just clarification, Mr. Mole. Could you identify the roads you might be talking about? 'Cause we have
Okay.
a lot of roads.
the primary roads, primary roads would be the ones outside the main center of town
Well,
here.
like
Although
paved
the roads here are not
The
plowed
paved
very
roads
well
and
at night
the gravel
either.
roads, just, kind of
I'm
narrow it
talking
down
like
a little bit more like
Center Line, Beaver Creek, the
Beaver Creek is one.
Goat Hill, all those roads in there, they need to be kept up and cared for. Also, the road back here on the main road going in, it when I had to go pick up my partner when she was working several times, and the roads coming out of the town were in such bad shape she couldn't drive her car. I took my truck and I put it in four-wheel low, and that's the only way you could get through.
So, yeah, so I get you there. I live back in that area. Beaver Creek area is one
Yeah.
area that you mentioned. I've been there 35 years, and I gotta say, this year's been the best year I've ever seen the roads looked after,
During the day, they're
All
nice
the
during the
time.
day,
I
but
don't
at
drive
night,
all-
they're not.
Well,
regardless.
Well,
And
it is,
presently
it's
we
not
exceed,
regardless because it's safety if they're not taken care of at night.
okay.
Okay.
I think we've got the message, and thank you for your input.
Okay.
I don't know who's next on the list.
The thing that bothers me about the whole thing, I actually wrote down how the people were being treated, like could be in very bad shape, and yet I wasn't able to tell you any of that. That's not really.
So through your chair, looking at the list of that, in terms of, I'm hoping I'm reading properly. Susan Connolly, I should remember that name.
Yeah. Welcome, Sue.
Hello, I won't need a microphone. I have a couple of suggestions to increase taxes here in Marmara and not cost us residential people. Then July of 25, there was a provincial meeting for all the municipalities held in Ottawa. At that time, the CAO of Tiny Township presented on how taxing Airbnbs could definitely help with tax bases and could actually allay costs for policing, for property taxes and everything else. And I know that this council has been asked many times about taxing Airbnbs. And I think it's a valid suggestion since it's recommended by a provincial authority and is done in almost every other municipality. Why can't we have it done here? Because there are lots of people making some good money. And they're not paying any tax on it because I bet you any money it's not on a T4 slip. But also, why can't something be done with the derelict buildings downtown, which people see as soon as they turn off the highway? They're falling apart. There are bricks falling down on the road. There's stop work orders on the thing. But why can't you go after the owners? And if they don't want to pay the back taxes or improve it, then repossess it and get rid of it, because that's going to hurt somebody really bad one of these days. I watched a lady grab her child and pull her back because there was debris falling from what's supposed to be a roof. And at the corner of Marble Point Road and Highway 7 on the northeast corner, there are derelict cars that have been abandoned there for 5 years. There's tractor trailers that are parked there that have been there for many more years than that. There is a trailer that was abandoned there after people decided it was too cold to squat in it. And literally, they were squatting. We saw them outside squatting to do other things. People see this when they're driving through Marmora. Why can't we do something to improve that, hide it, or get people who are responsible to take them to court, whatever you have to do, but get them to clean this up, because that's not becoming. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Just, do any members of council have any questions for Sue for clarification? Okay, thank you. Next speaker.
So through your chair, I have Kim Aldred.
Welcome, Kim.
Thank you. I'm not very good at this public speaking stuff, but you folks know that. Good evening, Mayor, Council, department heads, and staff. My name is Kim Aldred, and I wanted to take a few minutes today, not to ask for more, but to say thank you. I want to acknowledge the immense hard work that went into the 2025 fiscal year. We often see the results, but we don't always see the long hours and difficult balancing act that happens behind the scenes to keep our municipality running. I felt it was important to stand here today in support of the budget process. Too often, public input is dominated by no, by opposition to projects or services that simply because an individual might not personally use them, but a budget that isn't just a ledger of cost, it's a reflection of our values as a community. When we invest in our recreation, our local activities, and our cultural spaces, we aren't just spending money, we're building a social glue that holds Marmora and Lake together. So I'm here speaking in support of page 44, the line 50,000 for the Parks Reserve. I spoke on it last year and I'm speaking on it again. Recreation provides a place for our youth to grow and our seniors to stay active. Culture and activities gives us a sense of identity and pride. The people are our greatest assets. We all know that. Look in this room. They all deserve spaces and programs that foster connection. Even if I don't personally walk every trail or use every service proposed, I support them because I know they make the town a place where people want to live, work, and stay. A healthy community is one where we support progress and benefits that benefit our neighbors, even when it doesn't directly land in our own doorstep. I want to thank everybody again for listening and to council for their dedication to our future. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak in favor of a vibrant, active, and connected Marmora and Lake. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think you did well. Anyone have any questions for Kim before she? No? Thank you again, Kim. Next speaker.
The last, through your chair, the last I have is Lori Tannehill.
No.
Then never mind that. Thank you, Lori.
Okay. So I guess that's the end of our speakers, unless somebody's changed their mind and they wish to speak. No? Okay, well, thanks again. I just want to say thank you to the residents who sent in letters with their budget suggestions or questions. And I know staff have been involved in resolving some of those questions and so forth. And to Mr. Mole for being a registered speaker. If there's no other speakers, and again, I want to thank staff for being here to listen to the presentations, because if there's changes to the budget, you'll obviously be involved. And again, thank you to Nancy for an excellent budget and excellent presentation. Thank you. So next is our confirming bylaw. The bylaw 2026-13 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the special regular meeting of council held on the 26th day of February 2026 be read and passed this 26th day of February 2026. So can I have a mover and a seconder, please? I have a mover, this is Ron, and second Mike. Any discussion on that bylaw? Being none, all in favor? That's carried. Need a motion to adjourn, Ron. Second. They get it, Mike. We're officially adjourned from the meeting and